Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me. My name is Hannah Song. I am on the ISCT Telegraft editorial board, and today I have with me Dr. Patrick Hanley. Patrick, how are you doing?
Doing great. Thanks for asking, Hannah. How are you?
I'm good. So, Patrick, you recently won the ISCT 2026 Inaugural Mid-Career Award. So congratulations on that.
Thank you. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
always good to be the first, as they said when they were presenting the award.
The first of many, probably. So, I just wanted to kind of get your thoughts on, first of all, how was the ISCT meeting in Dublin?
It was one of my favorites. So I think ICT has kind of gone through a period of maturation, of transition. I've been around long enough now that I'm a mid-career person uh, to see it go from, the MSc Society that was less than 1,000 people at the annual meeting to the CAR T cell shift. And now I think it's kind of found a happy medium where it's still a fair amount of MSCs. It's some tissue. We heard presentations on macrophages, which I thought was encouraging because I know that there's been a number of CAR macrophage companies that have kind of gone under recently. And then we also, of course, had CAR T cells and other types of immunotherapies. And so I thought it was the perfect balance. We've added the fourth pillar to ISCT, which is the clinical pillar. So I think that was reflected in the meeting. So overall, just it was a nice balance. I felt very good about the meeting. I thought the venue was very nice. Dublin was a wonderful city. It was the blend of being in a city where you can walk to places to grab a bite to eat or a drink or a coffee or whatever, run on the Liffey, um, while also not being so big that you're kind of drawn out and that you don't see your colleagues. I remember when we were at ISCT, I don't know, 2015 maybe, when we were in Las Vegas, we would be in the hotel in Caesar's Palace and we wouldn't know whether the people there were from ISCT or they're just
Oh,
gambling. So,
nice. Yeah, exactly. So
yeah.
that's fantastic. So for your mid-career award, I just want to talk about, some of I'm going to list off kind of how you've been integrated with ISCT Society. It's spoiler a lot. It's many ways. So I'm going to run through these, and let me know if I misstate anything. So it's your vice president of the North America region, your managing
Past, yeah.
editor, past. Okay. You're managing editor of ISCT's Journal of Cytotherapy,
Interim, yep.
interim, cool.
Always
Um,
qualifiers.
Co-chair of the Immunogene Therapy Committee.
Past. Yeah, so all these are things I've done. Yeah,
Okay, maybe we should have structured this the other way. Okay, so so co-chair of the Workforce Development Committee.
yeah, past.
Yep, passed. Okay, so currently what are you doing at ISCT?
So that's interim manager of cytotherapy.
Got it.
And then I'm still on the immunogene therapy committee. I'm just not chairing it. Yeah,
Gotcha.
yeah.
Gotcha. And
So
then you've previously served on the board of directors of the Foundation for the Accreditation of Cellular Therapy and co-founder of the Early Stage Professionals Program or committee,
yep,
right?
yep, exactly.
So a huge breadth, and I apologize for getting some of the
It's
timelines
okay.
wrong, but certainly like a huge amount of, contributions to ISCT. So what I thought I kind of just wanted to get your feedback on, you know, a mid-career award is kind of special because, you're not early stage, but it's not, it's
You're in
not, the
purgatory if you see
career.
it.
Right. You're really you've set the stage to be able to make a difference for this next 10 and 20 years. So, how do you think about like receiving a mid-career award?
Yeah, the same way you just kind of thought about it, right? Is my reaction. I was like, oh, this is really special. I'm really grateful that, that ICT has recommended me for this award, the inaugural award. And then I said, oh, I guess I still have some ways to go before I can get one of the original, the OG major awards. But then I thought about it some more, and I think what I find most valuable is actually not me receiving this award, but the fact that the so many of the up and coming ESPs are now able to look forward to some other recognition because right now or before there was a gap, right? So you
Yes.
are super involved as an ESP, you're on this ESP committee, and then suddenly you kind of graduate into this void, and there wasn't really anything to catch you. And so I think that was a big gap. And we
Yeah.
had talked about it. We had tried to get ESPs on the scientific committee and things like that, but really there was something missing there. And so again, I'm really grateful for the award, but I'm most excited that other people can now look forward to receiving this kind of major award.
Yeah, and maybe that's a good place to talk about next is really that ESP committee, which I believe you were the inaugural co-chair, right? So you helped found that committee. Like, have you been surprised how like
Yeah.
large that committee and how much impact that, it's had?
Yeah, in fact, it's so large I don't know what the correct numbers are.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I give all the credit to Emily Comey Seymour and Deb Griffith, who really had the idea behind that. And they just came to me and said, hey, this is something we should found, and we got support from ISCT. And then once it kind of got some legs, it really took off. But it really took off after I stepped down as the co-chair. Um, so at that time, it was just one committee, and we would meet and talk about mentoring initiatives. And if I remember correctly, the first mentoring initiative didn't really go very well. But we had other things in the pipeline. We talked about putting people on the various committees, and I actually don't know that that ESP committee would have succeeded to the extent it is now if Queenie and ICT didn't have the long-term vision of investing in ESPs because the return was not immediate. I can't
Yeah.
say that if I went back now, I think we would do things much differently. But they saw the potential and they saw that these ESPs were willing to put in the effort to write papers and do a lot of the legwork. And so they invested. And fast forward to today's now there's sub ESP committees. I think
Yes.
more than 100 people have been involved in the mentoring program, which I think is now we can say it's a success.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I'm happy to be one of those mentors. So yeah, I mean, every time I turn, there's a new ESP something, and the ESPs really took on the ICT TV for a couple of years. When I was not involved, I'm really glad I was involved again this year. I still haven't seen the YouTube channel, but
Yeah, we're
um,
we're
we,
waiting for those.
we all are, I guess.
Yeah.
So hopefully I won't have overlapping content here, but yeah, that is where I really see the ESP shining and sort of stepping up and filling out all these gaps. And then that's just one more stepping stone into the scientific committees, into the regional committees with elected positions and things like that.
Yeah. So, I mean, thank you so much for your role in establishing that. And to everybody who's continuing to put these incredible programs on, they're really, really impactful.
No, and
So,
am I
yeah,
correct in
go
that
ahead.
are you still in ESP?
I am on the cusp of aging out. I am 10 years from my PhD. It was 10 years like on the dot like 2 weeks ago.
Okay.
So yeah.
That was a loaded question. I feel like
So now I have aged into what are we calling it? Mid-career. Mid-career.
okay. But the reason I bring that up is because I think you're an example of someone that is approaching your career in such a great way and trajectory. So in addition to your excellent science, we talked before we started recording about, the cytotherapy paper you published a couple years ago with Steve on comparing the Prodigy to the Zuri and the G-Rexes and, the impact that's really had. And my cytotherapy hat, I love that paper. But also you're putting yourself out there, right, with the Telegraph being on the editorial board now, and other roles that you had within ISCT. So I just want to give you a shout out, right? Because that's a good example of what people should be doing to kind of set themselves up for success.
Exactly. And there are so many like ways that we can connect throughout the society, but it's really the society that's bringing us together in this shared mission. So maybe putting on your cytotherapy hat, which hat do you want to put on? Cytotherapy hat or workforce development hat?
Let's start with the workforce.
Yeah, so so you were previous co-chair, but now you're just on the committee, right?
I'm not on that one anymore. They kicked me
Okay.
off. They gave me a pen
Okay.
though.
It happens. It happens. So, I saw you had a recent publication in Cytotherapy, on soft skills in workforce development. That is very interesting that
Yeah.
all of these, stakeholders come together and identify soft skills as a critical missing gap. Um, Talk to us about that and maybe what else is going on in workforce development.
And that's not where we started. I will promise you that. But this all started, so it's with the National Academies of Sciences, Engineering, and Medicine. So ISCT is a member of that forum. So Forum on Regenerative Medicine at the National Academies of Science, Engineering, and Medicine. And so they have different areas of focus. I think at the time there was three, manufacturing, workforce development, and I can't remember what the other one was, process sciences or something. And so we got together as the workforce group and said, what do we want to talk about? And every single person there had a different idea of what the workforce was. Like one person was only talking about bioinformaticians. And for me, I'm thinking of like manufacturing. And so the first question we had was, well, what is the workforce? And so we had different people come in and talk about their roles. And we had, actually, we had ESPs from ICT come and talk about their career journey, and what their different roles were and kind of what skills they needed, stuff like that. And so from that, we said, okay, I think what's missing is to hear what are the available jobs and what are the skills that are needed for those available jobs. And so we invited, mostly companies from industry, and we deliberately chose small, medium, and large companies. I don't think we broke them up that way, but what we did do is try and break them into preclinical, clinical trial, translation, and sort of post-clinical, or I guess commercialized BLA type companies. And we asked them a set of questions like, what jobs are hard to fill, what is available, what skills are required. And the answers they had were very interesting. So the one that resonated the most with me for a number of reasons, including my job, is GMP is something that people just don't understand. And it's not something you go and take a class, but understanding the frame of good manufacturing practices and how to apply it to what you're doing. So if you're working on translational development, or a new, CAR T cell, right? Understanding the limitations of what has to go on downstream is really important. You can't do 50 different gene edits to try and create a product because it's too difficult to translate. Or understanding that, you can probably use, an animal-derived product, but it's going to be much more difficult. So just understanding what those things mean and what happens later after you finish your role in the project. So that was one thing. But the other thing that just kept coming up more and more is people don't really know how to summarize the data. They don't know how to write the reports. They don't know how to send emails and understand that, you and I talking is going to happen in a different way than when you go and talk to the CEO. And those skills are not something that is often taught in these training programs. And so that's kind of how it came out. At one point, so it was almost like a soft skill within a soft skill. It was a group of people trying to figure out how to analyze all these data. And I had just created this one long spreadsheet, and everyone answered the question differently. So trying to summarize that data was really difficult. But what popped out again was just, hey, these are some soft skills that are lacking in the field. And that's something that it's not something people are talking about.
Yeah. Getting, where do you think people really first come across the idea of GMP? Is it their first job? Do you think they're just learning on the job? Or do you think there's now more opportunities where they can see it during their training and know, okay, this is a good fit for me, or maybe I never want to go near a GMP facility?
Yeah, so I'm going to answer from the frame of an academic center, and that's one of the things that I learned from speaking with more people is it's a much bigger world out there than we know. Um, Industry, pharmaceutical companies, right? Totally different than what our experience is. I think what I learned is that being in an academic GMP facility is kind of like having one leg in both. By no means are we, a biotech company or pharma, but I think it does run kind of like a small company, and it's a little bit different than just a research operation. Um, Anyways, I think that does give people the exposure to GMP as being in a translational center. But I think if you're in a university that maybe doesn't have a GMP facility or doesn't have an emphasis on translational research, you might never get that exposure until you apply to jobs. And then you say, what is this? And then it doesn't help that we refer to the GMP as like the physical entity, even though it's a set of practices. And so I think that doesn't help. But yeah, I think we aren't doing, a good enough job of talking about the different parts of translation. Maybe that's something IST could focus on.
Yeah, absolutely. So, the Mid-Career Award is not just, the contributions to ISCT through your, different committees. It's also, you know, your career, your development, and you're working at Children's National. You're in charge of a GMP manufacturing center since 2013, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I know a lot of exciting things are going on there. So can you tell us, what's going on at Children's that has you excited these days?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm fortunate to work here. I think I'm really grateful to work with Dr. Ballard, who is our Chief Research Officer and recruited me here in 2013, along with a number of other people, including Russell Cruz, also involved in Telegraft, and Best Poster winner at ISCT in Dublin. Yep. Um, I'm excited about a lot of things. I'm going to talk about a couple of things that we're working on as a program. So I'm not leading them. I'm just one small part to help sort of catalyze that. And then I'll talk about a couple of things that I'm personally working on that I'm excited about. Um, so first of all, in terms of the bigger team, we have an investment in our program to work on pediatric brain tumors. And we have a number of different clinical trials that I'm excited about, including using our tumor antigen-specific T cells in combination with focused ultrasound in patients with pediatric brain tumors. And so that dual modality, I think, has never been tested. And it's not just that trial specifically, but we have an entire queue that we're looking to get through the FDA in the next year that was catalyzed by that investment. And so I'm excited about that and kind of the role that we're playing in the pediatric brain tumor space to advance these cell and gene therapies. I think the other one is we are looking to create kind of a regional virus-specific T cell program because we've seen some of these companies fail in the space, Alvir, for example, but there's still this unmet need for patients that have refractory viral infections and they're not responding to traditional pharmacotherapy. And we do believe that the virus T cells work. I mean, we can't just believe, we have to demonstrate that with sort of randomized controlled studies. But there's an unmet need there. And we feel like, given our expertise, that's a role that we can play. And so we are reaching out to regional institutions to see if they're interested in that. And I know, for instance, NHLBI has expressed interest in potentially other centers at NIH as well. So there's a lot of things going on. I also our SABR clinical trials are B7H3 T cells, CAR T cells with a tumor antigen-specific T cell with a dominant negative TGF-beta receptor. Those are all thawed and combined and given to patients with solid tumors. Also excited about that. That's our Cancer Grand Challenges work led by Dr. Ballard. So um, those are three sort of bigger items that are happening. Personally, I'm excited about two initiatives, Cell Builder and Charm. So Cell Builder is us kind of giving back to the community. We've always helped programs by sharing our SOPs and kind of giving our knowledge away. But what we've done is we've tried to package this up into a starter kit, kind of like a home chef, if you will. So institutions and hospitals that don't have a cell and gene therapy, they can come to us and basically subscribe to our service, and we will give them all the things that they need to get their program up and running, from SOPs to template INDs. We'll do a gap analysis of their facility and their infrastructure and kind of help them get up and running at a fraction of the cost if you wanted to recruit a new investigator to do that. And there seems to be a lot of interest in that. So we have a sort of more than a handful of interested parties right now, including signing a lot of them. So that's Cell Builder. And then finally, the CHARM initiative. I know you've been involved in that. So that's the Capital Health and Regenerative Medicine in the Mid-Atlantic region. It's basically, we have an exciting area around us, right? We have you in the NIH, we have the FDA, we have Children's National, so many other reputable universities, NSF. Why don't we all come together and talk about cell and gene therapy and what we can work on together? I didn't mention we have AstraZeneca, Kite, so many other cell and gene therapy manufacturers, right? I mean, this is
Yeah,
whenever I talk about it, I miss like half of what we have.
right.
Patient advocacy groups, we have ARM. Anyways,
Yeah.
let's bring everyone together, talk about the advancements that are happening in the region, and what we can do as a unique region with CMS, HHS sitting in our backyard. And so I'm really excited about that. We have hundreds of people now in our database that have expressed interest in being a part of this network. We have an annual symposium. We've already had three of them. This will be our fourth in October 28th. And then we have regular meetups and we have regular webinars. So I'm really excited about that too. Every time I talk about that, people get excited. And I think that's the best that's the best way to gauge, other than people just giving you money, is it's just people's reaction to it. When you say it, they're like, "Oh, yeah, there's an unmet need there, right? That's product market fit." And then when they give you the dollars, that kind of validates that. So in a
Yeah.
year, we'll see. But
Yeah.
go ahead.
But I feel like you kind of brought it because it's, Charm, the regional initiative, and then ISCT being a global society, you need like both, right?
Yeah.
There's the connections that, we can foster because we're so close, but then there's all of this harmonization, we can learn from each other, we can yeah, we can so basically, these global meetings I feel like are so important in addition to our, hyper regional meetings too.
Yep. And I think you're seeing that within ICT. As ICT grows, it can't just have the global meeting. It needs to have these regional meetings. And, traditionally
Exactly.
those regional meetings happened every other year or whatever it was. But I think what you're seeing is that there's more focused, not regional meetings, but focused satellite meetings, right? So I know that there's one
Exactly.
happening on AI I think it's in New York, in North America, right? Yeah. And so that's, I think, what is speaking to your point about having just regular touch points. I think that's how
Yes.
ICT is going to grow and not just relying on one annual meeting to see your colleagues.
Yeah. Well, cool. I know we are running out of time. So, I mean, congratulations on all of those
Thank you.
really exciting successes. I mean, all of the work that you're doing to bring these therapies to patients at Children's and all over the world. That's really cool. Um, maybe my last question will be, so when you get an ISCT major award, like you get a physical award, right? Do you can you
Allegedly.
share? Can you share? Maybe it's not in your office yet. Maybe they're shipping it, but um, do you know what the award is this year? If the
I
answer
think
is no, we
it's
can.
it's something like this, but it's not this one.
Okay. Okay.
This was the IST North America meeting that we had.
Okay.
But no, they're
Fantastic.
shipping it to me. And to be perfectly fair, the IST head office deserves all the grace possible because they put on that meeting and it's a huge ordeal. So if they want to send it to me in August, that's totally fine.
Exactly. And then 2027, it was announced at the Dublin meeting that the 2027 meeting for ISCT will be in Toronto. Is that correct?
That's right. Yeah.
That's
Exciting.
awesome. So
Just
that should
across Lake Ontario from where I'm from.
awesome. Have you been to Toronto before?
I have, but I don't really remember. I was young, so
Okay, so yeah, good times coming in Toronto next year and much to do in between now and then. Um, but Patrick, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me today and to share with, everybody in ISCT what you're working on and what makes you really exciting. I know it's really great to hear from you.
yeah, no, thank you, Hen. I'm really excited about you and all the other ESPs and former ESPs that are ne the next wave of cell and gene therapy professionals. That's what we've always talked about on the ESP committee, right? The next generation. So thank you.
All right, talk soon, Patrick. Thanks.
Yeah, bye now.
Bye.